Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to your online lecture series of AA314 Measurements and Instrumentation. This is the first lecture of week 13, your lecture number 41, and this is the first part of your design problem based examples. And in this lecture, we are going to discuss about the design of signal conditioning circuits for resistive based sensors, and that change in resistance can be due to the change in any of the physical parameters like temperature, light, strain, or any other physical parameter. So let's get started. Okay, so as we are discussing resistive sensors, let's first talk about the maximum allowed power dissipation in a resistive sensor and how to calculate that, because there has been a confusion when we were solving the examples. We used to calculate the maximum current in a resistor, and then we related it to the maximum power dissipation through that resistor. And for that maximum current calculation, we used to take the value of minimum value of your sensor resistance. But if we saw examples in your textbook, the author was always taking the maximum value of resistance to calculate that current for maximum power dissipation. So there was a conflict. And let me clarify that conflict, and let me tell you what is the correct way to choose the resistance value and to calculate the amount of current for maximum power dissipation. And let me tell you in advance that the method in your book was almost correct, and that was the safer case. The author of your book was considering the safer case to ensure that no more than the allowed power dissipates across your sensor. So that was a better approximation. Our approximation was not completely incorrect, but that was not very efficient. So let's first see what is power. Power dissipated across a resistor can be written in terms of V into I, or I square into R, or V square over R. If we see the first relation, we know that if either the voltage or the current increases, the power dissipation increases. If we see the second part, we see that if either the resistance or the current increases, the power dissipation increases. But if we see the third part, we see that the power dissipation will increase if the voltage increases, but it will decrease if the resistance increases. So there seems to be a conflict in these two, and that is what we are going to clarify today. So in most of the resistive sensors, you have these resistors connected in series. So let me draw it like this. You have a fixed voltage source. You have your sensor resistance Rs and your fixed resistance R, and this is your voltage source that is fixed, and some current is flowing through this circuit. Now the maximum power across Rs will be dissipated when Rs is equal to R. This means that at this point the maximum power will be transferred to the load. That load is now your sensor resistance. So maximum power transfer. But at this point we do not know the value of either Rs or R, but we just know that when they are equal, the maximum power will be dissipated or transferred to this load resistance or the sensor resistance. Now for further clarification, let's select some values of these resistors. So we say that your Rs ranges between 141 ohms to 171 ohms, and your maximum allowed power dissipation in Rs is 30 milliwatt. Now using these three different relationships of power, we can say that P is equal to Vi is equal to Vs into Rs over R plus Rs into Vs over R plus Rs. This is the voltage dropped across the Rs over R plus Rs into Vs, and this is the current passing through this circuit, that is V over the sum of these two resistors in series. And let me expand it further. That will become equal to Vs square into Rs over R plus Rs squared. Now let's further assume that our Vs was equal to 5 volts. So this can be written as 25 Rs over R plus Rs squared. And this is the power dissipation across Rs. So it should be less than what? The maximum allowed power is 30 milliwatts. So our relation 25 Rs over R plus Rs squared must be less than 30 milliwatts. And this implies that R plus Rs squared must be greater than 250 over 3 Rs. So now let's check the limits of this equation. Let's put both the values of Rs and find out what should be the value of R to keep the power less than 30 milliwatts. So first let's put Rs as 141. So 141 plus R whole squared should be greater than 250 over 3 into 141. Sorry, that is 2500 over 3 Rs. 2500 over 3 Rs. So that is 2500 over 3 into 141. And this gives us R should be greater than 201.78 ohms for condition 1. For boundary condition 1. For boundary condition 2, let's put Rs equal to 171. So this means that our equation would become like this, and this will give us R should be greater than 206.5 ohms. So for one condition, your R should have been greater than 201.8. For the second condition, your R should have been greater than 206.5. And for any other value in between these two, your R should have been greater than some value in between these two values of R that we have calculated. Let's find out. For the middle condition, for condition X, let's put it the average of these two, 156 plus R squared should be greater than 2500 over 3 into 156, and this will give you an R of that R should be greater than 204.55 ohms. So this is in the middle of these two values as expected. This means that we just have to find the boundary conditions, and to satisfy that our design adheres to both these conditions, we should take R greater than 206.5 ohms. So that is your correct answer. And if we go back and see for which value of your sensor resistor it was calculated, for 171, for the higher value of resistance. So that's why in your textbook the author was calculating that current for the higher value of resistance to satisfy both these conditions. And that's what we are going to do from now on. We are going to calculate the allowed current to pass through that sensor by choosing the maximum value of the given range of our sensor resistance, not the minimum value of the sensor resistance. We will find the maximum allowed current by choosing the maximum value of sensor's resistance. So I hope this little derivation would have made things much more clear and would have removed any confusions. And now we can start actually with our design examples based on resistive sensors. Let's start. Okay, so here is our first design problem, and that was your last quiz. So let's start by solving your previous quiz, and that was based on a resistive sensor. This RW here was your resistive sensor in that case. So you already know the statement of this example or this problem. Let me revise it. This circuit here has been given to you as a design, so you just have to analyze it and you have to find the values of some missing resistances like RW and K to get a voltage output of the desired level. So this is a weighing machine circuit. Here is your voltage display, output display, and this display gives you the value of weight of that was put on this sensor. So this is a weight sensor. When you put weight on this sensor, its resistance changes, and the change in resistance will cause a change in del V of this bridge circuit, and that del V was converted into actual weight. So if here is 150, 1.5 volts will correspond 15.0 kg, and all resistances are in ohms. So our question stated that what value of Rz will be required to null the bridge at 0 kg. So at 0 kg, the value of Rw was 120 ohms. So let's find out what would be the value of Rz to null this bridge. At null point, Va would be equal to Vb. So what would be the value of Va? 120 over 120 plus the resistance of equivalent resistance of this branch. So let's write it. 120 over 120 plus 100 plus 24, this one, parallel to 70 plus Rz, and that would be equal to Vb. And what is the value of Vb? Rw over Rw plus 120, and Rw at 0 kg was 120. So it is 120 plus 120 plus 120 and multiply by Vs on both sides, so that would be cancelled, and that will give you this only unknown resistance Rz equal to approximately somewhere around 98 ohms. In part B, it was asked for what minimum and maximum values of Rw can the bridge be nulled using Rz. So this Rz is used offset correction for zero correction. So let's find out for what value of Rz, for what values of Rw can this bridge be nulled by Rz. And Rz can change between which range? Rz can change between 0 to 200 ohms. So we'll find out that range of Rw by putting once Rz equal to 0 and then Rz equal to 200. We'll find the values at both the boundary conditions. So let's find out. 120 over 220 plus 24 parallel to 70 should be equal to x over x plus 120, which gives us x equal to approximately 122 ohms, that is equal to Rw max. Then by putting Rz equal to 200, our equation will become 120 over 220 plus 24 parallel to 70 plus 200 is equal to x over x plus 120, and that will give you x equal to 118 ohms approximately is equal to Rw minimum. So for maximum value of 122 ohms and minimum value of 118 ohms of Rw, this Rz can be used to correct the offset weight or the zero offset. And we know that the mean value of Rw, the ideal value of Rw at 0 degrees centigrade was 120 ohms. So a plus minus 2 ohms difference in Rw due to any error factor can be corrected using this Rz. The third part stated that based on your answer of part B, what maximum zero offset weight can be nulled. So the value of Rw ranges from 120 ohms for 0 kgs to 130 ohms plus 2 into last two digits of your edge number and 50 plus last two digits. So let me take the last two digits of my edge number as 00. So this means that your Rw will change from 120 ohms to 130 ohms for a weight of 0 kg to a weight of 50 kg. And this gives us that we have a slope of 10 ohms per 50 kgs. That will give us 0.2 ohms per kg. And we know that we can correct this bridge by a factor of plus minus 2 ohms. This implies that plus minus 10 kg maximum zero offset weight can be nulled. So this is your part C. In part D, it was asked that what offset voltage delta V results when the weight is 50 kg, assuming that the bridge was nulled at 0 kgs. Again, putting the weight as 50 kgs, you have to find the corresponding resistance of your Rw, and in my case it is simply 130 ohms. So let's find out the delta V. So your equation will become Vs into 120 over 120 plus 100 plus 24 parallel to 70 plus 98 minus 130 over 130 plus 120, and this Vs was equal to 5.1 volts. So here we have 5.1 volts, and that would be equal to delta V. So just calculate that. And then in the last part, you are asked to find the gain K so that the dBm indicates the weight but in volts, i.e. if the weight is 23.5 kgs, the output voltage should be 2.35 volts. When you have this delta V is for your maximum weight, and delta V for 0 kg weight is equal to 0. Delta V for 50 kg weight is, let's say, X. So you have to translate it into 0 volts to 5.00 volts. So what you have to do? You have to simply divide this 5 volts by X and find the gain. So your gain K will be equal to 5 over X, and you can calculate that. So the only that you should have taken while solving this particular quiz was to take this combination of resistors and calculate this with whole of this in series, and then these two in parallel and these two in series again. And the rest of the calculations were fairly simple and corresponded to a simple DC bridge. Okay, so let's continue with your second example related to resistive sensors. So this is a very interesting and a sort of a tricky question. So let's see what the author is asking in that. The author is saying that we have two temperature sensors, both are thermistors, and they are used in combination to measure the speed of air that is passing through that environment. So this right here is your diagram that explains the working principle of your setup. So you have an enclosure. This is the enclosure, and you have one temperature sensor inside that enclosure that is shielded from any external environment, so no air will flow through this temperature sensor. And then you have this exposed thermistor that is outside this enclosure, and when the air flows, it will cool down this thermistor. And these two thermistors, they are connected in the form of a bridge. So just like in strain gauges, in case of your strain gauges, you had a dummy strain gauge and you had a active strain gauge. So here also we have a dummy and an active temperature sensor similar to the strain gauges. So these two resistors are R. This is your dummy or your shielded sensor, and this is your active or exposed sensor. Okay, and the author is saying that both of these are operated at an elevated temperature of 45 degrees Celsius using self-heating. This means that some current is passing through them, and when there was no air, both of them were self-heated due to that current passing through these sensors, and they were heated to 45 degrees Celsius. Then it is stated that it has been experimentally found that the temperature difference between the thermistors are shown in the following table for wind speed of 0 to 60 miles per hour. So this is the change in temperature for the corresponding wind speed, and this is the change in temperature of the exposed thermistor. So what's happening is this thermistor was exposed to the air and there was no wind speed, and it was self-heated to 45 degrees Celsius, and then some wind started to blow across this exposed thermistor, and this thermistor that was self-heated at 45 degrees dissipated some heat into the environment and was cooled down to by these temperature readings, by these measured temperature readings for different speeds of wind. What we have to do is we have to design a bridge and op-amp system that will provide a 0 volt when the wind speed is 0 miles per hour and 6 volts when the wind speed is 60 miles per hour. So this will effectively, the voltage will effectively give you the wind speed. The conditions that we have to keep in mind while designing this circuit are that the initial resistance of these thermistors at 0 miles per hour wind speed is 2 kilo ohms each at 45 degrees Celsius when they are self-heated already. And the slope of this thermistor is negative 24 ohms per degree Celsius within plus minus 10 degrees Celsius range. So this means that this 2 kilo ohms will change linearly by 24 ohms per degree centigrade for a temperature range of positive 35 degrees Celsius to positive 55 degrees Celsius. And we can see here that when the wind blows, the maximum change in temperature is 7.7 degrees. So that lies within this plus minus 10 degrees range. The dissipation constant PD is 5.5 milliwatt per degree Celsius. The voltage supply of this bridge is 20 volts and the ambient temperature T is 21 degrees Celsius. That is very important. So now we have some conditions, we have some data, and we understand the problem. So let's try to solve this problem. We know that the ambient temperature, the initial temperature was 21 degrees. Initial temperature is 21 degrees Celsius. And we have to heat these thermistors using self-heating by passing a current through them to temperature of 45 degrees. So self-heat the sensors to 45 degrees Celsius. This implies that the delta T required because of this self-heating is now 45 minus 21, and that is 24 degrees Celsius. And we know that it is equal to P over PD. Now we have the dissipation constant also provided to us. So that would be equal to P over 5 milliwatt per degrees Celsius. And this will give us the power that has to be dissipated through those two sensors to heat them up from 21 degrees Celsius to 45 degrees Celsius. So that power comes out to be 120 milliwatt. This much power has to be dissipated by each sensor to raise the temperature from 21 degrees Celsius to 45 degrees Celsius. So they are being operated at an already elevated temperature, and the wind will cool down one of the sensors, and that effect of cooling will change in resistance of the sensor, and that change in resistance will be converted to how much was the wind speed. So one of our values is there. This is the required power dissipation. And to dissipate this much power at 45 degrees Celsius across those sensors, what we have to do? P is equal to I square R, and that is equal to 120 milliwatts is equal to I square into 2000, 2 kilo ohms. And this gives us the required current that we have to flow through these sensors to heat them from 21 to 45 degrees and dissipate this much power, 120 milliwatts, across these sensors is 8 milliamperes. This is the required current. So right now, up till now, we are just trying to self-heat these two thermistors. Now we have the current and the resistance at 45 degrees. So the voltage at 45 degrees Celsius is equal to IR, and that is equal to 8 milli into 2 kilo, and that is equal to 16 volts. So this will be the voltage drop across the sensor at 45 degrees Celsius. And let me go back to this table. At 45 degrees Celsius, the delta T is equal to 0. So now 45 degrees Celsius is your initial value of temperature. That is your 0. We are also given that the power supply of the bridge circuit is 20 volts, which means that if we have a total of 20 volts and 16 volts are being dropped across the sensor, the remaining 4 volts should have to be dropped across the other resistor, and by that we can find out the value of the second resistor, this resistor. So here we have 16 volts and here we have 4 volts, and we know that this value, this voltage is 20 volts. So we can easily find the resistance of this fixed value of this fixed resistor. Let's find out. The current is 8 milliamperes passing through both the resistors as they are in series. The voltage across that resistance is 4 volts, and we have V is equal to I R. This implies that R is equal to V over I, and that is equal to 500 ohms. So now we have the value of these two resistors as well, 500 ohms and 500 ohms. And at 45 degrees, these are at 2 kilo ohm and 2 kilo ohms. So the delta V will be 0 at 45 degrees Celsius. So your one condition, one requirement, that you have to get a 0 volt for 0 miles per hour speed when the delta T was 0, and when both of these thermistors are at 45 degrees Celsius, no wind speed, no cooling, you are getting a 0 volt output. Now let's move on to the next step. We have to find out what would be the value of del V out of that bridge circuit when the wind speed is 60 miles per hour. At 60 miles per hour, if we go to this table, we know that the thermistor will be, due to the wind, the thermistor will be cooled by 7.7 degrees Celsius. So at 60 mph, the thermistor temperature is 45 minus 7.7 degrees, and that comes out to be 37.3 degrees Celsius. And now this change in temperature was due to the change in temperature of the surroundings, not due to this self-heating. Due to the self-heating, the temperature was already at 45 degrees, but due to the change in environmental temperature, now the thermistor's temperature is 37.3 degrees, and or it has been decreased by 7.5 degrees approximately. And here we are given that the transfer function of, or the slope of this temperature sensor is 24 ohms per degree centigrade change in temperature of the environment. So now this change in temperature is due to the environment, so this slope of 24 ohms per degree Celsius will be applicable, and this implies that the thermistor resistance will change by 7.7 degrees into negative 24 ohms per degree Celsius, and that comes out to be 185 ohms approximately. Initially at 45 degrees, the thermistor resistance was 2000 ohms. So this means that the final thermistor resistance at 37.3 degrees Celsius, or at a wind speed of 60 miles per hour, will be equal to 2185 ohms. The resistance will increase because both are these negative signs, they will cancel out, and there will be an increase in resistance, not a decrease in resistance. And we know that in case of thermistors, the coefficient of resistance with change in temperature is negative. So when the temperature increases, the resistance decreases. But when the temperature decreases, the resistance increases. And in this case, the temperature is decreasing. It is decreasing by 7.7 degrees. So the new thermistor resistance is 2185 ohms. And now we can find the del V at 60 miles per hour by using a formula. 20 is the supply, 2000 over 2000 plus 500. So this is for the encapsulated sensor or the shielded sensor whose resistance did not change due to the wind effect. And this is for the sensor that is exposed to this wind speed and whose resistance was changing because of the drop in temperature due to the blowing wind across it. So 2185 over 2185 plus 500, and this means that delta V at 60 miles per hour will be equal to negative 0.275 volts. And what do we need it at this point? We wanted a voltage output of 6 volts at 60 mph. So the gain will be simply equal to, required gain will be equal to 6 over negative 0.275, and that is equal to 22 approximately. So this is your gain, and gain of a differential amplifier. And using the same formulae, you can find out, you can fill out this table. You can choose a temperature of, let's say, negative 5.5 degrees Celsius. You can find the change in resistance due to the change in this temperature. So 24 into 5.5 is 132.
So this means that at this point, the resistance of the exposed thermistor will be 2132 ohms, and the V out, the bridge del V will be equal to minus 0.2 volts. The del R will be equal to 132 ohms. So the V out will be equal to minus 0.2 into 22, approximately negative 4.4, positive 4.4 volts. So we wanted to have a 3 volt output when the wind speed was 30 mph, but we are getting a 4.3 volts. Similarly, here we are getting 0, here we are getting 6, and for the other calculations, we are getting here as 2.44, and let me fill this table completely. So we are getting 2.44, 3.62, 4.38, 4.97, 5.56, and 6 volts. So for 0 mph, we are getting 0 volts, good enough. For 10 mph, we should have got 1 volts, but we are getting 2.4 volts. For 20, we should have received a voltage output of 2 volts, but we are getting 3.6, again 4.38 instead of 3, 4.97 instead of 4, 5.56 instead of 5, and 6 for 6. So if we plot these, we are getting a non-linear relationship like this. So this is the output voltage versus speed. For 60 mph, we are getting 6 volts exactly, and for 0 mph, we are getting 0. But for 10, we are getting approximately 2.4. For 20, we are getting approximately 3.6, and so on. So we are getting a non-linear relationship of our voltage output with our linearly varying wind speed, and that is the issue with your bridge circuits, because your bridge is a non-linear device. So what we wanted to do was to linearly convert that linear change in temperature with linear change in wind speed to a linear voltage output, but that didn't happen. Our output, voltage output, was non-linear. So the maximum error is at this point. You can see that approximately an error of 144%. But the important thing is that we cannot get a voltage output that is corresponding to the actual wind speed. There are huge errors in that. So what we have to do? This figure does have the answer to this also. So we are getting this approximately exponential curve instead of a linear curve. And here, if you see, we have an equation. This expression relates your x and y axis parameters. At your x-axis, this x is the volts, and at your y-axis, this y is the speed, and this y naught is the offset, and this t1, a1, and y naught, they are constants. So the actual expression of this system is an exponential expression, not a linear expression. The linear approximation would have been like this if we just simply connect these two lines. And this is y is equal to mx plus c. And you can see that this portion that has been shaded in blue is all error if we get a linear approximation. But if we get an exponential approximation, this black one is your actual curve, and this red one is the exponential fit of this equation. So this red one is this expression, and this black one is your actual output. And you can see here this very narrow white portion. Now I am filling it with green. Only this is the error. Otherwise, it is fairly expressing the relationship or the mathematical relationship between your voltage output and your speed. So you should not use y is equal to mx plus c. The linear expression should not be used in such cases, in case of bridges, but the actual expression of output versus the input should be used, and usually that is an exponential expression, a single order exponential. So what you can do is you can use this expression to solve for your unknown based on your known, and you can easily solve logarithms and exponentials inside your microcontrollers or microprocessors. So this single order first order exponential equation is fairly simple to solve in your microprocessors. So always use the actual curve fitting or the actual mathematical relationship between your input and output, not just approximate everything using a linear expression. So this was a fairly interesting example based on resistive sensors and with a fairly interesting application of temperature sensors as airflow speed meters. Now let's move on to your next design problem related to, again, resistive sensors, signal conditioning circuit design for resistive sensors. And again in this example we are going to take a temperature sensor as a resistor sensor. The problem states that the temperature of a plating operation must be measured for control within a range of 500 to 600 degrees Fahrenheit, and we have to develop a measuring system that scales this temperature into a 0 to 5 volt output. And why we want to convert it into 0 to 5 volt output? Because we have to use this then as an input to an 8-bit ADC and a computer control system. And the requirement of the accuracy for this system that we are going to design is that the measurement error must remain within positive plus minus 0.5 degrees Fahrenheit. We are also restricted to use an RTD, so we cannot choose any other temperature sensor, and that RTD has a resistance of 500 ohms at RT naught. That RT naught is 260 degrees Celsius. Alpha is 0.003 per degree Celsius, and the dissipation constant is 20 milliwatt per degree centigrade that we will use in self-heating to keep our error within this range. So these two are related. We are also asked to eliminate the loading effects in our signal conditioning circuits. How we are going to manage that, we'll look into that. Write all equations used in your calculations, write values of all components on the final circuit diagram you designed, and write the resultant equation of temperature versus final V out and plot it with steps of 10 degrees Celsius, okay? And comment whether the output is linear or not and explain why. Also comment whether RTD was a good choice for this particular application or not and explain why. So again, this is a fairly complete problem that we are going to address. So let's get started. First, let's write down the specifications of the RTD we are using. R is equal to 500 ohms at 260 degrees Celsius. Alpha is equal to 0.003 per degrees Celsius. PD is equal to 20 milliwatt per degree Celsius. So it is usually 20 milliwatt per degree Celsius for RTDs, and it is usually 5 milliwatt per degree Celsius for thermistors. These are the nominal values that are usually used for these different types of resistive sensors. But one is semiconductive resistive sensor and the other one is metallic resistive sensor. The required range of operation is 500 to 600 degrees Fahrenheit, and the required output is that has to be translated into 0 volt to 5 volt output. Accuracy required is plus minus 0.5 degrees Fahrenheit. So for a greater accuracy and for very small changes in resistance, what is preferred to use? Which circuit is preferred to use for conversion of change in resistance to conversion of change in voltage? Remember, thermistors are semiconductive resistive temperature sensors whose resistance decreases with increasing temperature, and that decrease in resistance is very large. So they can be easily used with potentiostats or voltage divider circuits because the change in resistance is pretty big. But RTDs, on the other hand, they are resistive temperature detectors they are metallic and their resistance increases with increasing temperature, and their change in resistance per degree Celsius change in temperature is very, very small. And to detect very small changes in resistance, which is the best option to convert the change in resistance to change in voltage with much higher accuracy and sensitivity? Voltage divider or bridge circuit? We discussed that and we proved that bridge is much better at detecting very small changes in resistance as compared to voltage divider. So we are going to use a bridge circuit for this application because the change in resistance is very small. Let's start by converting these two temperatures given in Fahrenheit into degrees Celsius. So T low is equal to 5 into 500 minus 32 over 19, and that is equal to 260 degrees Celsius. That corresponds to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. And T high is equal to 5 into 600 minus 32 over 19, and that is equal to 315.6 degrees Celsius, that is corresponding to 600 degrees Fahrenheit. And this implies that R low is equal to 500 ohms and R high can be calculated using the linear approximation of RTD resistance. R high is equal to R naught into 1 plus alpha into T minus T naught. This will give us R high is equal to 500 into 1 plus 0.003 into 315.6 minus 260, and that is equal to 583 ohms. Now you must be thinking that this R naught used to be our average temperature, not the lower temperature, and this alpha used to be at the middle value of temperature, and this temperature used to be, this RT naught used to be our average temperature. So what happened here? This 260 degrees Celsius was our lower temperature of the range. Why we are not using the average temperature of this range? Because we are only given information of our R alpha and alpha at the lower temperature. So our temperature range is from 260 degrees Celsius to 315 degrees Celsius. That is our range of interest. But this linear approximation that we are using is from, we can say, 260 is here, 315 is here, and approximately 215 is here. So this is our range for linear approximation, but we are only interested in this area. So that doesn't make our linear approximation wrong. That just makes our linear approximation to be a little bit less precise. Why we choose the middle point as the RT naught for the linear approximation is to keep the range as small as possible. So ideally we should have chosen this point as the middle value, and we should have taken linear approximation in this range only. Smaller the range, more accurate the linear approximation is. Larger the range, less accurate the linear approximation is. But that will not be completely wrong to use a larger range if linear approximation can still be applied in within that range, and 215 to 315 within 100 degrees Celsius, the behavior of RTDs is fairly close to linear. So that is not a bad approximation. That is not just the best approximation. The best approximation should have been to consider only the range of interest as our total range for linear approximation and use the middle value of that range of interest as our RT naught. But in this case, unfortunately, we have no information about any value at that middle point. So we are using one end point of our range of interest as our middle point of our total range of linear approximation. So that is not wrong, that is correct, just not the best approach. But we are bound here, so we have no other option. So let's continue. This gives you the R resistance at the lower temperature, at the temperature at the lower end of your range of interest, and R high, the resistance at the maximum value of the temperature of your range of interest. 0.5 degrees Fahrenheit in degrees centigrade is 0.5 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to 0.28 degrees Celsius. So P over PD is equal to del T, and that is equal to 0.28 degrees Celsius. And the dissipation constant is 20 milliwatt per degree Celsius. And this gives us the maximum power that can be dissipated by the sensor to and remain within the allowed error of plus minus 0.5 degrees Fahrenheit due to self-heating is 5.55 milliwatt. We cannot let more power to dissipate across that sensor to keep the error due to self-heating within the allowed range. So this means that your current I square R is equal to P, and this implies that I is equal to P over R under root, and that is equal to under root 5.55 milliwatt over what is the resistance? 583 ohms, and this gives you a current of 3.08 milliampere maximum. Your current should not exceed this value. And if you noticed here, we took the value of resistance to be 583 ohms. That was our higher value of resistance. Our lower value of resistance was 500 ohms. So we did not take the lower value of resistance to calculate the maximum value of current, but rather we took the maximum value of resistance to find the maximum value of current. And I explained why in the beginning of this lecture. So in your bridge circuit, you have, this is your bridge circuit. This is powered up by a 5-volt source. This is R, this is R, this is 2000, and this is your RTD that ranges from, this is not 2000, this is 500, and this RTD resistance ranges from 500 to 583 ohms. So we have to find the value of this R. And how to calculate that R? We can simply use I is equal to 3.08 milliampere is equal to 5 over 583 plus R, and that will give you R equal to 1037 ohms. So this both of these two R's are 1.037 kilo ohms. Now verifying that the maximum temperature change due to power dissipation of self-heating, we can use at 500 ohms, I is equal to 5 over 1037 plus 500, and that is equal to 3.25 milliamperes, and the power dissipation will be equal to 5.28 milliwatt, and the delta T will be equal to 0.26 degrees Celsius, and that is within our allowed range of 0.28 degrees. And you would be wondering that how come this 3.25 milliampere, that is more than 3.08 milliamperes, results in a power dissipation lower than the maximum. So we are calculating it at the higher resistance, so it should be P is equal to I square into R at 500 ohms. The lower value of resistance is being multiplied by this current. The current 3.08 was calculated for the higher value of resistance. So at 583 ohms, I is equal to 3.08 milliamperes, and delta T will be equal to 0.27 degrees Celsius. Both of them are within the range. So this means that the selected value of resistance, that was R is equal to 1037 ohms, was correct. And if you don't find the correct values, you have to go back to this step, choose a correct value of R that satisfied your maximum allowed change in temperature due to self-heating. But in this case, in our case, luckily, we already calculated R as a correct value. So now we have R equal to 1037, this equal to 500, and RTD range value changing from 500 to 583. And at this point, the bridge will be at null positions, and here we will be getting our delta V. So the bridge is already null at 500 degrees Fahrenheit or 260 degrees Celsius. Let's calculate del V at 600 degrees Fahrenheit, and that will be equal to 500 over 500 plus 1037 minus 583 over 583 plus 1037 into 5, and we'll get a voltage output of 0.173 volts. And how much voltage did we need? At 600 degrees Fahrenheit, the required voltage output was required V out is equal to 5 volts. This implies that the gain should be equal to 5 over 0.173, and that would be equal to 29. So you have to provide a differential gain of 29 to your delta V. And we were also asked to eliminate the effects of loading in our signal conditioning circuit, as we see here. So how the effects of loading are eliminated from our signal conditioning circuits? By using voltage buffers or by using instrumentation amplifier. So you just connect an instrumentation amplifier at this point with a gain of 29, and you will get a voltage output of 0 to 5 volts for a temperature of 500 degrees Fahrenheit to 600 degrees Fahrenheit. And then similarly, for different temperatures, as asked in your question, that find the del V and the V out with a step of change in temperature of 10 degrees Celsius, find the value of resistance and plot the change in temperature versus the voltage output and approximate it linearly and see and comment whether it is linear or not, and why if RTD was a good choice or not. So let me show you roughly that this was the linear approximation, and this green was your actual curve. So this was your actual curve and this was your linear curve, and this on x-axis we have temperature in degrees Celsius and on y-axis we have V out in volts. So the linear approximation, ideal linear approximation, varied slightly from the actual curve, and it was not a very huge difference, but yes, obviously there would be some errors due to linear approximation because again the bridge output is non-linear. It is fairly close to linear in very small ranges of V out, and that is what we are getting here, but in larger ranges it is fairly non-linear. So in our previous example we saw that it was very non-linear. Again, this was also a bridge circuit, but it was extremely non-linear because it was being operated in a wider range. But in this case, in this second example, your actual curve was closer to your linear curve than the previous example, but still not precisely linear, but with lower errors. So again, I would suggest that you should use the actual mathematical curve of this expression, this curve in green, to find out the actual value of temperature based on your V out. And finally, we were asked to comment whether RTD was a good choice for a small temperature range or not. So yes, RTD was a good choice for a small temperature range because it is fairly close to linear output in the given range with a good sensitivity. And now finally move on to your last example related to the signal conditioning circuit design of resistive sensors. And this time we have selected a strain gauge as a resistive sensor. And this figure shows the arrangement of our strain gauges on our beam, and we want to find the strain produced in this cantilever beam due to the force applied laterally to this one end of this beam. So this figure clearly illustrates that we have two active cells and two dummy cells. So we have a double sensitivity for this type of arrangement, and this is a two-arm bridge. What we are required to do is we have to draw the bridge circuit in a way that whenever the beam bends in any direction, the output voltage magnitude increases in either direction from initial null condition. So the magnitude should increase. The sign can be either positive or negative. Also write the expression for the bridge of null voltage in terms of gain factor, where the source voltage is Vs, and also comment what is the advantage of using two active sensors instead of one with solid reasoning, and what is the purpose of two dummy sensors. So this question was given as a derivation in the last year exam, and I think last year I did not derive the whole expression of V out versus the gain factor, but this year we did derive the complete expressions, and we went into the detail of the derivation, and we also commented that what was the advantage, the sensitivity doubled. So this question has already been solved, and this means that your examples related to signal conditioning circuit design of resistive sensors is complete. Let's revise the few major points that are to be kept in mind while designing the signal conditioning circuits of our resistive sensors. Number one, we have to see whether the change in resistance is small or large due to the change in parameter. The fractional change in resistance is very small or very large, and accordingly we have to select either a potential divider or a bridge circuit to convert that change in resistance to a change in voltage. For very small changes in resistance, potential divider is not a suitable circuit, and the bridge circuit is always preferred. For large changes of resistances, however, potential divider circuit can be used. Second point is whether we are using bridge circuit or a potential divider circuit, both of them have non-linear output. So we have to consider the non-linearities in the voltage output versus our change in the parameter due to which the resistance was changing, and even if the change in resistance of the sensor due to the change in parameter was linear, the output voltage of both the bridge and the potential divider will be non-linear. So we have to keep in mind the non-linearities. And number three, we have to keep in mind the power dissipation across the sensor resistance, because the power dissipation will result in self-heating, and the self-heating will result in change in resistance in return, and that will result in errors. So they are related. For example, if there was a strain gauge and the strain gauge was used to measure the strain, and the change in strain was producing a change in resistance, the strain gauge was operated in a bridge and the current was passing through that, and due to that some power was being dissipated across that strain gauge. So that power dissipation across that strain gauge will result in rise in temperature of that strain gauge also, and the resistance of strain gauge will also change because of the change in temperature in addition to the change in strain. So when the temperature rises, the resistance changes, and that change in resistance was supposed to happen only because of the change in strain. So now we are getting an error due to self-heating, and those errors should be carefully considered while designing your analog signal conditioning circuits for resistive sensors. So that is pretty much it for your signal conditioning circuits for resistive sensors, and these 3 points are written as a summary here in case of resistive sensors. Point number 1, point number 2, and point number 3, and I'll share these notes with you as well. So that's it for today's lecture on resistive sensors. In the next lecture, we are inshallah going to discuss about the thermocouples that have a voltage output for the change in temperature, and that voltage output should be converted into different scales by giving them different gain or by using an offset and so on. So we will be discussing the voltage based sensors in our next lecture. So till then, take care, stay safe. See you in the next live session, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.